The thing behind my channel that's a little different and for kids is I like to let them be creative. Sometimes teachers will want them to copy exactly what they're doing, and it's against who I am as a teacher. We have a lot of fun with it, actually, if you go check out the channel.
Welcome to the Fluid Arts Podcast with your host, Kevin White, where we dive into the wonderful world of fluid arts, including acrylic pouring, alcohol ink, resin art, and more. In this podcast, we let talented artists share with us their techniques, inspirations, and tips for creating amazing fluid art. Whether you want to earn a living making art or improve your work, this is the podcast for you. So sit back and relax as we take you on a journey to learn more about this exciting and engaging art form.
Welcome to another episode of the Fluid Arts Podcast. I am your host, Kevin Jr., and today we have an amazing artist with us by the name of Ashley Kreiger.
Hi, Acrylic pouring family. I'm glad that I'm on here to hopefully share some good stuff with you guys.
Absolutely. Well, I'm really appreciative that we took the time to get together and wanted to, introduce you just a little bit. You've been painting for a while now, but what was the age when you first began painting?
I started when I was little. I just loved art always, pretty much. Just like my 5-year-old now, he gets up and he draws every day. That was me. So art's just been really something I've always loved.
Are they interested as well? The other two? You have 2 boys and a girl.
Yeah, they're off and on, the older ones, which was kind of like how I was too. But they do a Createful Kids channel. Right now, my oldest is dabbling into editing videos and helping me with that channel. And we kind of just do it as she wants to, because I don't want to pressure her into it, because art for me is like a release. It's something fun to do. So I want to keep that. And so I have 3 very creative kids, and I think it's just part of having all that stuff around to create with.
Yeah, I think that's awesome that everybody is on board with the whole creativity process. I know you mentioned your kids and your husband. Just from what I watched in the videos, look like he's very involved with the creative process as well.
Yes, he is. He's a very creative guy.
You being an artist, right? You're full-time. How long have you been a full-time artist?
Well, I started to actually do it for work or for, job, I guess, in 2005. So we're going on 15 years now. And I started that with actually, which is very interesting, teaching. So we were trying to get through college. And I thought, well, I have all this knowledge all the knowledge that I've accumulated about art, and I make it just for fun. Why don't I just teach it and make some money on the side to help us through college? So that's where it began.
Gotcha. So it wasn't like an institution or anything like that. It was you setting up shop online, just painting and giving the lessons and stuff that you learned?
Yeah, so I didn't go online until 2015. I just did in-person lessons. YouTube wasn't around then, so I didn't really even think about online anything. And I opened a studio. This is in Pocatello, Idaho. I opened up a studio and started selling art from there too. So it was just kind of this very natural, okay, I'm going to do this. And if it works, it works. If not, I'm going to stop. And it just started working. So but I had to take a nice break in between there and not do a lot of the lessons because I was really sick when I got pregnant. And so I didn't get on the board with YouTube until a little bit later.
Is it a little bit different teaching in the studio versus teaching online, or is it a lot of the same stuff?
Oh, goodness. Well, it's the same information, but it's very different for me because, well, like when I'm with a person, it's just natural talking and you can answer questions that's very specific to them. And when you're making a video, I have to think about the person and the questions they might have. It's just more difficult for me to imagine them on the other end, you know?
Yep.
So it was a big adjustment.
Okay. And if you're anything like me, I'll get multiple people that I'm thinking that I'm teaching. And it's different than if you have that person right in front of you. You can kind of concentrate a little bit.
Right.
Oh, most definitely. I can certainly relate to that. If anything, like me, sometimes I start off the beginning of my audio with a person that I feel like I'm talking to, and then by the end, it's a completely different person. So yeah, that can kind of confuse me a little bit as well.
Yeah, exactly.
You've taught more than 2 million online painting lessons, and that's been in the last, let's say, 5 years or so.
Uh-huh.
So viewers who want to take a look at what Ashley's been doing, I'll make sure that I put a link in the show notes, but it's definitely an opportunity for you to learn straight from someone who is doing it day in and day out. So I just want to make sure that we highlight that it's been more than 2 million online painting lessons. So can you talk about that a little?
When you say, oh, you've done all these art lessons, I just remember like that transition period from when I lived in Alaska. So you just have maybe a few people around you who want art lessons, and you got to like make flyers and try to find all those people. Anyways, that's exactly the reason why I went online, is because I was like, I can teach more people and reach more people. And I just love the opportunities we have today.
Yeah, the outreach that we're able to have in so many different countries as well. I'm sure it's not just in the United States that you've been able to teach.
Right. It's really fun.
You had mentioned Alaska.
Yes. We lived there 7 years.
Nice. What I also want to talk on is you traveling the world, essentially.
Yeah. So we're just in Alaska, and we kind of were stuck up there a lot because my husband had a full-time job, 9 to 5, had to go from Wasilla, which is an hour away from Anchorage. Every day he's got that commute, which is a 2-hour commute. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. We're just like, what are we doing? You know, why are we choosing this? Just questioning life. And we're seeing on YouTube all these people who are traveling because, you know, we're getting inspired by YouTube channels. That's kind of what YouTube's there for in a lot of ways. And so we're like, why can't we? So we put our house on the market, and it wasn't like this decision that was fast and we didn't think through. We had to make sure it was going to work. And so my husband asked if he could basically travel and not have to do the office thing, in a way of saying like, well, if you want me, then this is how it's going to be. But if you don't, I'll find something else, you know. Kind of scary to do now, but I hadn't gotten to a point where we were living off of YouTube or anything like that. So I was probably at that point barely making enough. So it wasn't something that we could live off of. But in the back of my mind, I knew it was going to be something that we could eventually live off of. And it was something that would work with our lifestyle that we wanted to do. So a lot of the reasons why we went online too was not just to reach people, but to be able to travel and have a life that we have chosen. And I think a lot of people want that, right? Everybody wants a life that they've chosen. So, but it was hard. I remember when our house wasn't selling and we got discouraged and we're like, what are we doing? Are we not supposed to do this? And we just kept making those little decisions towards it instead of letting it get us down. And I think the whole thing with YouTube channel and with life in general is obstacles come, a lot of obstacles come, and you have to learn to get around them or go through them or go over them. Whatever you need to do, you got to be creative. So our house didn't sell instantaneously at all. And then it did sell. Then we went to Idaho, got our RV. We started out with a used RV. We only thought we were going to do it for a year, see how it goes. And we loved it. So I told my husband, I'm like, I don't even have space to do my art. This is hard. So we got a bigger RV, and now it's just like, we love this. We've gone to almost all 50 states. I think we have the traveling bug.
Yeah. A lot of our members in the group have been wanting to do some traveling. I know right now with all the restrictions, it's kind of hard, but definitely one of those things where I think it's always worth it, you know, and you probably would agree as well, just because you don't want to regret it when they do restrict it and stuff like that.
Yeah. And we have found that we kind of just have to be very flexible. And I think that's with everything too, like with YouTube and teaching kids homeschool while you're traveling. And I mean, flexibility is key. And so we changed our plans of where we're going to travel this last summer. And we keep changing our plans, but we're still doing what we want. It's just, it has to change so we can keep doing it. And we've seen some amazing things this last year. It hasn't kept us from enjoying nature and enjoying the travel experience. We've been like super careful though, because we have elderly people. But when it first started, we think we had it already. We had COVID. We were super sick this last spring, and our friends got tested and they did have COVID. So we kind of have that in the back of our mind too. Like, we know what this is like and we were really sick. So we just have to be careful.
So you're still able to do some traveling as of right now?
Yeah, we do. We're in Florida and we still like go and we see things. We do a little bit less traveling in the winter because you have a limited amount of places that's warm enough.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. But it does affect us where we want to go, but it doesn't affect like seeing things and doing things. We did get kicked out of a state park when we were in Florida last year because they closed down all the state parks. But like I said, you have to be flexible. And so we looked around for something that was open and stayed there for a little while. And then, you know, you have to do a lot of research to find where you can actually go and the restrictions and all that stuff. But we enjoyed a lot of traveling, and we did stay with our family for a little while too.
I do think that's a experience that not many kids get, is to be able to travel, meet different people, see these different locations that they're reading about. I think that's probably got an amazing impact on your kids.
Yes, it has, and will continue to do so. I mean, they have so many Junior Ranger badges, we can't even put it on their little vest they have. And we go through the Junior Ranger program and it teaches them so much stuff. There's so many opportunities to learn things wherever we go. It's like having field trip every day, pretty much. So it's really cool for them. We love it, and they love it too.
I'm sure it's different teaching kids versus everyday adults, but is there some major differences when teaching kids?
Oh yeah. Kind of the thing behind my channel that's a little bit different and for kids is I like to let them be creative. You know, sometimes like teachers will want them to copy exactly what they're doing, and it's against who I am as a teacher. So I let my kids kind of go a little bit, you know, and just do their thing. And sometimes that's really hard to record. And I'm like, well, I was telling you to do this step, but you know, it's kind of going a different way. Staying focused is a little bit harder for them, and that kind of thing. So yes, it's different, but it's a good different. I mean, we have a lot of fun with it. Actually, if you go check out the channel, you'll see that we're like smiling and giggling, kind of playing a lot. And I'll get the lessons in there. And lately I've, you know, kind of had to tell her what to say to teach because she won't remember like a certain step or whatever, but it's teaching her how to teach by doing that. So it's been really cool.
I think that's awesome. Even you break it up into 3 categories, like the different age range.
Yeah, because children develop different, and usually in the early stages, it's all about showing them what supplies do, how to take care of them, and just letting them be creative. Then they get to a stage where they're like, ooh, I really want to know how to copy this. And the drawing stage, you know, where they just want to draw too. And so you kind of have to go with the flow with what they're interested in too, and then what development they're at. So that's why I do that. I break it up in stages. And the stuff for YouTube, I try to find things that all the ages can do, and then they can take it to their level.
I know the amount that you spend on paint doesn't necessarily equate to the value of the art, but do you have any paint brands or any places where you typically will get your supplies?
Yeah, so I have all the supplies that I use in my videos on my website for the kids channel and the adult channel. I absolutely love Liquitex because it's so versatile. You can use it with different mediums, and they just are always adding things. And so I really like their brand, and their quality has been really, really good. So even with the kids' lessons, I'm now using the Liquitex brand. It's just the basic though, you know, because I don't feel like it needs to be expensive supplies. I just think they need to work so that there's no frustration. The brushes that I really, really love, I've used them for several years. They're inexpensive enough that like beginners or kids can use them. And a professional artist, because that's what I use, you know? So that's the key things that I'm trying to look for when I'm looking for a supply is like, is this going to be frustrating and is it worth it?
Do you have any advice for viewers who are starting from scratch, where they've developed their skills with acrylic pouring, whatever artistic skill? Do you have any advice for them starting a YouTube channel?
Yeah, so YouTube's a little bit different than doing whatever you want as far as painting. You kind of have to go with what people are searching for, because if you're doing a tutorial or even like trying to entertain with like a speed video or something like that, it needs to be something that's searchable content so you can grow your audience and they can find you. So at first you kind of just have to put in like how to paint and then see what comes up. And then do your own version of that. Having your own style on there, that's really going to set you apart too from other channels. For me, that's been a real struggle because when I first started, I was teaching. And so I was teaching so many different styles. So I'd be like, hey, you know, what do you want to learn how to do? And they would bring me a painting and I'd be like, okay, we can learn how to do that. And then I would say, what would you like to change about it? But I was teaching so many different styles that I don't feel like I was really painting what I wanted to paint type thing, which is kind of still where my channel's at. But my state paintings, I try to keep them my style. Does that make sense? So my advice to YouTube channels is do you, and that's going to get the people who like you to follow you. And then also think about what people are looking for so those people can find you.
Nice. For those who are creating like acrylic pours, and I know I've often did this myself, it looks beautiful by itself, but it sometimes just feels like it's missing something. Do you have any tips for them?
I think for me, I try to imagine what it'll be like. And I know that's hard for people too, is to be like, okay, I want to put like a purple horse on this and try to see it with that purple horse and try to keep that image in your mind so that you can get it on there. It takes practice. It really does. And then I always try to do something temporary first that I can take off. So I would take maybe a purple watercolor and I would sketch out that horse on top of there and see, does it match? Do I like it? Is it actually going to work? And if it does, fill it in with your acrylics. And honestly, taking risks is what is going to make something really great. There's no like, I'm just going to not take risks and it's going to turn out awesome. I think risks are really the key to discovering things and finding your style and that kind of thing. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And it's coming from someone who practices what they preach. I mean, even the decision that we talked about earlier, leaving the traditional way of living and going on the road and making that a reality was following the same advice. So I appreciate that. What about any advice for selling commissions? Like, I know a lot of our artists, they focus primarily on commissions and that's how they make their living. But do you have any tips to sell commissions?
Yeah, I have gotten several commissions from the YouTube channel, just so you know. It just does put you out there as, oh, you know, this person could paint this for me. And I always, always, always start the relationship professionally. So when they ask me for a commission, the professional thing to do is to try to figure out exactly what it is they're envisioning and what they want. Then putting that down on paper and making sure that you understand what they're envisioning and what they're thinking. Also, they understand that you are the artist and you may make changes if you find that it needs that, like dimensions and colors. I try to get as much information down as possible. Just think about it as building somebody's house. Like, you know, it's not as expensive, but they want a certain thing and they want a person who's going to be professional about it. If you start the relationship off with like, they don't know how much it's going to cost, or they don't know if they're even going to like what you make, that kind of thing, it's not professional. And what usually happens is they don't pay for it, they change their mind, all that kind of stuff. So if it's on paper and then I have them sign it, I sign it too, and then we have an agreement that I will show them the progress. I ask for half the cost up front, and that's important because you're paying for all the supplies and you're taking time out of your life to do this. So, I mean, where you could be making money doing something else, you're doing this. So I do ask for half the cost up front. I always, always have a date when it's going to be done that they've agreed on, and I get it done before that. I think just, you know, delivering better than what they were thinking is good too. Another thing I like to do is add things that will make them happy. A little bit of strategy there, but rolling in the cost of what it's going to take to ship it to them, so they know that price is the final price. They're not going to be like, oh crap, you know, I have to pay for $200 worth of shipping. I just roll it into the cost so that they know this is exactly what you're paying. Deliver it to them professionally, make sure that you communicate really well, and you'll be okay with commissions. And I love doing commissions.
I like the commitment part because it really would suck if you did all that work and then they kind of flaked or backed out at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. And also finishing before the completion date. I think that's a big key point right there too.
Yeah, it makes them happy. They're so happy. They're just like, yay.
I love all the tips and tricks and all the stuff that you've learned and you're always willing to share. If the viewers want to hear about more of what you got going on, or they want to see your work or even see you traveling, where should they go?
You guys can go to createfulart.com. All that information is on there. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and leave me a comment. I love hearing from you. So those two places, I answer comments every day. Well, yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on, Ashley. And thanks for stopping by the Fluid Arts Podcast. Yeah, thanks for having me.
If you enjoyed today's episode, then please like and share with your community. And please let us know if you have any suggestions for artists you'd like to hear on our show. This episode is sponsored by acrylicpouring.com. Acrylicpouring.com is the leading fluid arts website which provides fluid artists around the world the inspiration and tips they need. If you are new to fluid arts and want to get started now, then go to acrylicpouring.com to learn the 5 fundamentals of making beautiful acrylic pours for free. Also, join their Facebook community, where every day artists just like you are sharing their newest creations that just might end up on another one of these episodes.
I think the whole thing with the YouTube channel and with life in general is obstacles come. A lot of obstacles come, and you have to learn to get around them or go through them or go over them